Seattle proceeds with its second homeless encampment sweep of the week. We got 2 in 1 week. Now, normally this wouldn't be a newsworthy event, and it shouldn't be a newsworthy event because we shouldn't have a bunch of people living in our parks, on our sidewalks, in our streets. That shouldn't be a thing, but it is. So we've got Westlake Park. I went down and shot, I did a live stream this morning on said homeless encampment sweep because I just kind of wanted to see what was going on. I knew it was going to be a smaller sweep because it's a smaller encampment. It only takes up kind of a triangular corner of a block area. It takes up a park. And the big deal is we're trying to get the tents off of the sidewalk so that people can walk up and down the streets as you do. Because if you're in the streets, you could get hit by a car. And I saw plenty of people almost get hit by cars this morning. I saw all kinds of crazy stuff. Some of it made it into the live stream. Right before the live stream started, there was this guy who clearly just scored in this little alcove thing in a building on the public street, on the sidewalk. He jumps out. I can't remember if he had a shirt on at that point in time or not. He jumps out, takes his belt off, wraps it around his arm, and kind of goes over to the side of the sidewalk and he tries to shoot up and he can't. So he throws his belt down and he literally, this is a corner of an intersection with a light, just, people whizzing by, all kinds of stuff going on. The guys in the alcove still dealing their drugs or whatever they're doing in there. I couldn't see. Their backs are to us. You can see that in the live stream. The guy I'm talking about sits down on the sidewalk and shoots up into the webbing of his toe. Oh, so if you can't find it in your arm, find it in your toe. That's just so brutal, so brutal. And then I started my live stream. I walked and I kind of turned my phone towards the guys doing their thing in the alcove. Got that on, and he didn't really like that. So he followed me for a while, and that was pretty creepy. But I walked around a good portion of downtown Seattle that's been in the news a lot, and a lot of the news stories, people getting shot and all kinds of just crazy stuff going on. So I wanted to go down there and take a look-see because we've got this deal where employees are starting to go back into the high-rises in downtown. The cruise boats are dropping off thousands of tourists, and they're starting to come to all the stores and walk around. That's one of the reasons we've had a second homeless cleanup in a week is that we're trying to make it a little bit more presentable, trying to tidy up a little bit here. Pandemic is over, right? I mean, it's over. It's over. We're just not doing that mask thing, even in Seattle. Today is the last day. Today, March 11th at 11:59 p.m., 59 seconds. That's the last time we have to wear a mask of this little cycle, right? So even here in Seattle, we're giving up the mask, the indoor mask anyway. So you've got this conflicting tourists running around on top of these just kind of wild outlaw homeless people, just this story that exploded during the pandemic because nobody was in the downtown streets. So they could kind of go wherever they wanted without anybody really bugging them. And then crime just kind of started running rampant. We defunded the police. We don't have enough police anyway. And so all of these things combine to make these areas in a city like downtown Seattle just really unsafe. And now you've got a situation where all the people that are going to be coming back onto those streets, employees, tourists, people working in the high-rise office buildings, people working in the stores, kind of getting going because there's going to be more people to support buying stuff at said stores. You've got all this stuff going on, and we got a new mayor, and the new mayor here in Seattle has said, we're going to take a tougher stance on the homeless encampments. We're going to clear them out. Now, we had one at the beginning of the week, or a couple of days ago, I think on Wednesday, that actually started on February 22nd. And I podcasted on that, and the podcast was mutual aid. They're all linking arms, and they're standing in front of this homeless encampment sweep. Stop the sweeps, all that crazy stuff, because they believe that sweeping people doesn't provide a solution. We should just all allow them to live wherever they pitch their tents. Literally, that's what they believe. They believe it's inhumane to clear people out of parks living in tents, killing themselves. Man, there's so many different angles to this. So I wanted to go down, and I covered the live stream and walked around, and I walked down to Pike Place Market. You can see that in the live stream. But just a lot of nutty homeless people walking around, people that are just, out of their mind, and people on drugs, and yet tons of tourists as well. That's one of those things. It's like, oh my gosh. I drove past the Nike store in downtown. There was a line, about 20 people out the door looking to get in and get themselves some Nikes. This is in downtown Seattle, right where all this craziness goes on. A couple of blocks over, you've got a memorial for a guy that was, killed last week. Just this wild juxtaposition, or whatever that word is, of crazy times. So let's kind of move on with this one. So for the second time this week, the city of Seattle proceeded with the cleanup of homeless tents, this time in Westlake Park. So we got the second homeless encampment sweep, and we had another one on Wednesday. And the big one on Wednesday is, by mutual aid. They're the groups that want to protect the homeless and think that they have the right to live just wherever in whatever squalor. And, they're big on the environment. They're big on going green, the Green New Deal. And yet somehow that doesn't get transferred into having clean parks and, the squalor that homeless encampments bring. They seem to be okay with that. So physically destroying the environment is okay. But if we talk about being green enough and maybe drive an electric car, it's all good. It's all good. That's all you got to do. I don't know. It's pretty wild. So today's homeless sweep, by the time I got there at like 10 something this morning, it was pretty much all done. And the one prior to that on Wednesday, that one came on pretty quickly. But what happened is the police, because this had been stopped, this sweep had been stopped for like maybe 9 days by mutual aid, linking arms and, doing their thing. Bruce Harrell, I think, sent in the police. Police got there on Wednesday, quadrant off the area, and then brought in the Department of Transportation, Seattle SDOT, to start clearing it out. So had police presence been there from the beginning, probably would have worked out. So, moving forward, I think we'll see a much larger police presence at these things. I mean, why take the risk? Send a couple of cops there, whatever it is, and however many police you need to basically just secure the place. What I saw today on the sweep was, when I got there, it was pretty much over. There was a handful of people on the sidewalk that looked like they were in line to kind of talk to somebody about getting housing, getting a referral to somebody. I saw somebody get in a cab and take off with all of their bags. And it looked like a number of people were getting referrals to housing, as it should be. And it was done. There was like one tent left by the time I left. And that was a couple hours in on a decent size encampment that kind of lined the sidewalk. It was just, it's just not a place to live. One of the things that I kind of became aware of, amongst a number of other things, when people live in a tent on the sidewalk, you're at risk from getting run over by a drunk driver, or you're at risk from getting shot from a stray bullet. So that's one of just a number of things that are dangerous about living in a tent in a public park on a busy street. You just got all these factors, as if life isn't hard enough if you're living in a tent in a public park on the side of a busy street. It's just, there are so many different things here, and people just shouldn't be living there. They should be able to get housing, but the city doesn't have enough housing to put everybody in it. And the interesting thing is how few of these people take the referrals and actually go live in the shelter that they're offered. They don't want to. They don't want to, because it's a lifestyle choice. And with the folks that I saw living their lifestyles this morning, one word, drugs, right? I mean, just a ton of addiction running around. So at around 9 a.m. this morning, crews came in, cleaned up, and cleared people out. That was kind of my thought is, wow, The mayor is not messing around. A lot of cops, a lot of personnel, lot of private security in downtown Seattle. I did see the Iron and Oak private security group. The place I parked, Westlake Park parking garage, had good security. I felt safe. Each storefront that was a significant store, it had its own private security. So people are taking security very seriously, and they've had to, because there's been such a breach of security up until this point. So is the tide starting to turn? It's way too early yet. We don't know. And is this just a one-off effort? Don't really know. I was able to walk after I kind of took a look at the homeless encampment, and there wasn't a lot going on because they had already handled basically dismantling all the tents and saying, hey, you got to be out of here. I walked down to the McDonald's on the corner of 3rd and Pine, one of those, where it was just an open air drug and stolen goods bazaar up until about a week ago. And now they've got a mobile police unit on that street, on the other side from where all the activity used to happen. And I literally walked past 5 Seattle Police Department police officers all right there. There wasn't anything going on because they had it handled. And the sidewalk was cleared and it was clean and McDonald's was open. So you've got a little bit of a shift, whether it's long-term and whether this is due to the mayor kind of having a little bit of a heavier handed, although he does say, hey, we want to do this in the most appropriate and loving way possible. But when you kick somebody out of their tent, there's some give and take. So a small group of people looked on during the early morning cleanup, and for some, it was tough to watch. Others tell KIRO 7 the cleanup was necessary for everyone's safety. Activists and protesters have said people need services, not sweeps that uproot them. The deal with the sweep that started on the 22nd and didn't end up happening until March 8th because we had to send in the cops first. The deal there is people knew for weeks. They basically knew 3 weeks ahead of time it was going to happen because that's when the first sweep happened. But if you read the media, it was like all of a sudden they came in with the sweep. But we didn't know where it came from. They just popped it on us last minute. No, they didn't. They've been offering housing to everybody, and they did their first attempt on February 22nd. So, and that was an article that I read in Publicola, and a couple of other articles. I'm like, okay, you're not mentioning anything. You're not mentioning anything about the fact that this has been going on for 3 effing weeks, and we've had to bring the cops in because we've got mutual aid, basically just getting in the middle and mucking things up. They don't help at all. They don't help at all. They don't have long-term solutions. They don't help at all. That's my opinion. Activists and protesters have said people need services, not sweeps that uproot them. In some cases, homeless people often refuse those services. In some cases, a lot of the cases. Because if they go live somewhere else, they can't shoot up and do whatever they want just in their own tent or on the sidewalk or literally at the intersection of a sidewalk, sit down, and you've already got bare feet, and shoot yourself up in your foot. I mean, just wild, right? I mean, and to have that happen, you're kind of like, okay, I'm in Seattle. I'm in a pretty big city. And this is acceptable behavior. This guy feels comfortable enough where he can sit down with drugs in his hand because he knows it's a misdemeanor. Actually, he probably doesn't know what he's even thinking, right? He's just out of his mind. But he did look right at me at one time when I had walked past his buddies who probably just dealt him the drugs. They were all huddled up in the alcove thing. He understood that part. And that's when he got upset with me. He got that part. But everything else, he's just out there without his shirt on, running around, doing crazy stuff. I saw another guy take his stash of stuff, whatever it was, some kind of drugs, and he burrowed down inside of a big planter, city planter that holds plants. He burrowed down, stuff all was stuffed in there, and then he kind of put the dirt on top. And I'm like 5 feet away watching this going, oh man, you are really covert. I mean, if I can see you doing this, but yeah, people aren't in their right minds. They're just whacked out, all get out. So yeah, just a wild morning of normal stuff going on in downtown Seattle. What's weird about this? This is normal. Shoot up my toe, my foot every day. The city says the HOPE team within its human services department has been doing homeless outreach. Okay. It's likely that effort will continue, but Mayor Bruce Harrell has said that efforts to get camps off public sidewalks are a priority because you got people going back into those business complexes. You've got tourists walking around. They're not sure what to make of the dodge the human fecal matter on the sidewalk. It's not a good look for the city, is it? It's not a good look for any city, is it? So we do these sweeps and we hope for the best, and we don't have enough long-term housing. Okay? We don't. I don't know what the solution is, because if you provide housing for all these people, just more people are going to come. That's what's going to happen. It's going to create that sucking vortex, right? So the camp in Westlake Park was far smaller than Wednesday's cleanup from City Hall and 4th Avenue. And a lot of people made fun of the cleanup on Wednesday happening because that's where Mayor Harrell's office is located. So people are saying, the mayor loves us, but doesn't want to see us. Yeah, one of those kind of things. That camp stretched for several city blocks and has been there for months. And that was a big one. The one on Wednesday that got swept. People there admitted they were not sure where they would go. And I saw people today with suitcases and, all kinds of stuff, just meandering around in different directions. Some of them, I'm sure, were on the sidewalk a few hours ago. But it's not like the city just jumps in and does these. They post notices and, they've got services there and they do the best they can to get people the help that they need. But oftentimes, people don't accept that help because accepting that help would require them to live under some rules. And, a lot of the articles I read is, well, it wasn't a good fit for their lifestyle. Okay. So is it about making a good fit for people's lifestyle? If they're on the streets, where do we draw that? We're accommodating way too much. That's my opinion. The city of Seattle tells us that roughly 15 people from Wednesday's camp were referred to shelters or tiny homes. Vast majority of them, they just moved elsewhere, right? Because they want to do their thing. They want to do their thing. And what better place to do their thing than in a homeless campment somewhere else? So that's what I see going on. And, we're going to have issues as we come out of the pandemic. We're going to have issues. You're going to have that, you've got opposing forces and some rough stuff I'm afraid is going to have to happen before we can kind of really get a handle on what's going on in a downtown core like Seattle, where we've got so much progress and we're so progressive in our thinking and how we're going to approach things that we just kind of let people live willy-nilly wherever. And the pandemic with the whole CDC, don't sweep any encampments. Everybody just got way too comfortable. And now we're having to shake up that comfortable a little bit. And people are losing their minds. It was very interesting today that there was no real mutual aid presence. I read on one posting that they were tired from the multiple days of protesting at the Wednesday's camp clearing out. They were tired and they were going to take Friday off and they weren't even going to man some table at some park doing something. So they needed a break. And so the people at Westlake Park, they didn't get any representation from mutual aid. That's just how that went. So this is an ongoing topic. And if you want to check out that live stream I did have to cut it really short because my battery died, because I didn't turn off all my apps running in the background, because I didn't optimize my battery. Haven't done a live stream in a long time. And so I was a little bit rusty and, I started off holding it horizontally and it said, you got to turn it sideways. So, I've got some screw ups like that, but I'm going to do some more live streams because those are, they're fun for me to do from the standpoint of I got to juggle a lot of stuff because you got heroin boy back over here or meth boy, whatever, who is doing who knows what, and you're live streaming and you can see him behind you and you're trying to talk and, you got a lot of stuff going on and that requires a skill set that I'm not great at, but I want to do some more. So Somebody asked on the live stream if I was wearing a bulletproof vest. I don't own one. They sound really heavy. You know, to walk around with a bulletproof vest over the top of my down coat. I don't know. Yeah. But from a safety standpoint, it's probably not a bad call, because one of the things I did walk past on the sidewalk was a memorial for the kid that got killed on 4th Avenue. I mean, he was 15 years old. I think, was it 4th? Yeah. Just horrible, horrible. And then 2 blocks after that, you've got people watching the guys pitching fish down at the Pike Place Market, the public market. Just everything's happy-go-lucky. People are seeing iconic Seattle. It's the greatest thing ever. It's the greatest morning ever of their lives. Starbucks is full. You know, all the little coffee shops are just jam-packed. And yet a couple of blocks over, a week ago, 15-year-old kid got capped. Yeah. Wild. I mean, it's just, you've got this kind of real opposing forces going on. So I'll be covering this for a while, because you're going to have these stories for a while. And this is going on across the U.S. because, you know, there's this thing right now in the cities anyway that have had this go on. Portland, from what I understand, hasn't had as many folks come back to their downtown. Shocking. Interesting. Yeah. And that's where we've got the tourism for those cruise ships that come into our downtown, and they walk up the hill a little bit and they're at Pike Place Market. And then just a couple of blocks beyond that to the east, you've got just the craziness I'm talking about. So, yeah, these are things that are ongoing, and the same trends are happening in other big cities. You've got people going back to the downtown, you know, back to the urban cores, and you're going to have a tough time because you've got these conflicting wants and desires and lifestyles. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thank you so much. Don't forget to check out that live stream. It was kind of fun. But yeah, it did end rather abruptly, like done. Thanks again for tuning in to News for Reasonable People. We'll catch up soon. Bye for now.